and then it's ready to go. So I'm just going to start out by saying welcome to Saturday Night Live, Life Recovery Ministry. We're glad that you're here, all of you that are here in person and all of you that are out there in TV land. How about that? So anyway, what we're going to be talking about tonight is it's an interesting topic. Now, let's see, Paul's the one that selected it, so it's on overcoming. I can hear my sound coming out of my Bluetooth. Overcoming denial. So that's a big topic. I think it's going to be an exciting topic, and so it will be a good thing to talk about. We're still in step 5, and I am going to be sharing at the end of the night. I'm going to touch some of the topics here in just a moment as a kind of a whet your appetite, is how to be 100% honest with yourself. How about that? A requirement to self-improvement. And we're going to take, and there are 9 key ways that you can become more honest with yourself. Okay? And I'm going to touch on those 9 key ways real quickly. And the first one is really a big one. Okay? And I'm not going to go all the way through them. I'm just going to kind of touch on the titles so you kind of get an idea of what we're going to be talking about. But the first one basically is very, very important. And the other 8 kind of helps supply tools to help accomplish number 1. Number 1 is acknowledge both good and bad in your life. We need to acknowledge both the good and the bad in our life. Got so many papers here, I don't have the right one. Well, we'll just wing it. Number 2, take time to reflect. And we're going to be talking about reflecting, taking 5 or 10 minutes each night to go over your day. I'm going to give you 3 questions to ask yourself. Number 3, admit it when you make a mistake. All right? We have a hard time doing that. You guys might not, but some of us other guys do. And it's very painful when that happens. Number 4, pay attention to your feelings. And this point is so important. We'll be talking about that because we need to pay attention to our feelings, because oftentimes, for a lot of us, we just try to shut our feelings off because they're problematic, at least we felt. But as we're going to be talking about later, feelings are really a sign to help you understand if we understand the source of the feeling. We'll be talking about that. Sound interesting? Number 5, find someone you trust to open up with. We have to have somebody that we trust, and we can get a deeper and richer picture of ourselves when we have someone with an outside perspective of us. Right? You didn't understand that? Okay. You're pointing at me. Number 6, avoid overthinking or self-blaming. Boy, we need that one. And this is about overanalyzation. And so we'll be talking about that. Knowing when you can trust your gut. Repeating, knowing when you can trust your gut. That's important. So if John was here, he'd say it one more time. Knowing when you can trust your gut. We'll be talking about the process of helping us to know when we can trust it. Okay? Number 8, accepting what we don't know. This is an interesting one. Accepting what we don't know. And that's so important that we need to do that. And we'll talk more about that. And I know that could be a little confusing. But number 9 is really good, and that is honesty takes practice. Right? Practice, practice, practice. Okay? And if we practice that, then it helps us to improve our life in so many ways, in so many dimensions, so many categories. So, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you here. And Zach is our MC, but he seemed to have disappeared. So, anyway, I think that we got a lot of good stuff that's apt to be here. And while he's coming, I'm just going to go ahead and read some quotes I have down here. How about that? Some things that's related to tonight and overcoming denial. It takes great courage to be honest with ourselves about ourselves. What do you think about that one? Number 2, if we aren't honest, then we can't expect to learn and grow as individuals. Isn't that true? We have to be willing to recognize reality for what it is before we're able to change it. We have to recognize what it is before we're able to change it. And the last one is a quote by Walter Anderson. I don't know Walter Anderson. This was a new name, but I did a little research, and there seems to be a lot of stuff out there by Walter Anderson. And this pertains to what we're talking about tonight. And it says, our lives improve only when we take chances, and the first and most difficult risk we can take is being honest with ourselves. How about that? Mr. MC himself.
All right, well, welcome to Saturday Night Live, everybody. Good to see you guys. It's been a while.
Quite a while.
Yeah. Everybody's asleep. Well, we're glad you're here, and we are going to get moving. So, Kate's going to come read the steps for us. So please welcome Kate.
Okay.
Step 1. That's not moving, so I'll just yell.
That's not going to pick you up.
You got to put the mic
I know. He's a rookie. He's just new at this.
Okay,
There you go. I think that's got it.
thank you. All right. Step 1,
Thank you.
we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step 7, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And step 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. And finally, step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thank you, Kate.
Yes, thank you, Kate. All right, we are going to move on with the step, and Paul's going to do it for us, so please welcome Paul.
Good evening, glad to see y'all again.
See you too, Paul.
Step 5, we admitted to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And the section I chose was overcoming denial. I figured I could do that because I really don't have anything I need to work on at this point. Okay, not as good a laugh as I thought I would get, but y'all kind of get that. In the book, rather than read the whole thing, I've highlighted some things that I thought were really quite helpful. One of the things it says is, addiction is in opposition to God's design because it thrives on secrets, sneaking, hiding drinks, hits, or partners. Our first reaction to admitting to God or ourselves and another human being is defensiveness and fear. It is kind of a scary thing. I know what's going on in my life, and I can kind of say, well, everybody's the same, and I don't have to admit it to anybody. And I figured God knew before I even thought about talking to Him, so that's not a big deal. But when I start thinking about telling one of you guys, that gets kind of scary, because then it's out there and the light's on it, and everybody knows. And that makes this one of the hardest steps for us to go to, is the thought that I'm really going to have to deal with this now. I can't just pretend anymore. When you put it out there, it becomes work. But if we don't do that, it says in isolation and protected space, recovery efforts are easily sabotaged as we create and maintain plenty of room for destructive behaviors to continue. If we don't talk to somebody else, we're probably not going to hold ourselves accountable, because that's how you wind up in a meeting like this, is because we've not taken care of ourselves all of our lives and not been accountable and let life crash. And even though we know God knows, kind of in the back of our mind, we know that He's not going to strike us dead with a bolt of lightning, and we can get by with sneaking around just one more time and going out and doing whatever our favorite behavior is. And He's not going to hold us accountable, at least probably not today. I'm not going to get struck by lightning. At some point in time maybe, but I can slide a little farther. This is kind of the things we tell ourselves in our head. But then again, when it comes time to talk about the things we've done, by being exact and specific, we can no longer fool ourselves about how badly our addiction and its consequences have affected our lives and those people around us. When you say, I've done some things, I've made bad decisions, had some bad choices, that's a lot different than saying, I beat my wife. It's a lot different than saying, I'm strung out on drugs, I'm a drunk. You know, when you get exact and specific and you tell somebody, it changes that picture from some sort of euphemism of, like, you know, I've been a bad boy. You know, that's not anything that you feel like you need to change. But when you look at yourself and you say, I'm a workaholic, and I have worked and let my family crash and burn, and I have destroyed my children because I didn't raise them because I've been too worried about making another $100 a week or whatever, then it's a real thing that you can work on. So, but the rationalizing mind of an addict can very convincingly minimize our behaviors. It's just so easy to say, you know, whatever I've done, everybody does it. You know, I can fix it someday later. It's not that big a problem. You know, it's not that, and usually, or at least for a lot of folks, it's not that big a problem until it's too big a problem to even address it all, and maybe you're in drug court, or you're in the hospital and near death, or some sort of major rock bottom your family's all in a circle looking at you saying, hey, you're drunk, you need to straighten up. You're destroying your life and you're destroying our family. You know, then it becomes real. Talking about the book, it says, remember that the steps are not only about victory over addictive behaviors. That's being sober. If you can put it away and quit doing it, that's just being sober. And we know that being sober is not recovery. They're also about ridding ourselves of the blocks that keep us from being a service to God and others. And we don't just want to put away, we don't want sobriety, we want recovery so we can be of use and value to somebody else. That's one of the things we do as we go through recovery is, as I take 2 steps forward, I can reach back and I can grab somebody and pull them along with me. And that's what makes our lives valuable, because we're making an effort to help somebody else and we're not all tied up in ourselves and our own addiction and what can I do for me next, but what can I do to somebody else. That makes you a valuable person in society, and that means you can stand up tall and you can be proud and feel like you're actually gaining ground instead of just feeling like I've been such a bad person and I'm a worm. And then it comes to the really hard part about this, admitting the exact nature of our wrongs to another human being. Who should this person be? Who are we going to trust with our moral inventory? We made a list last month of all these bad things that we've done, and the good, but most of us just put down the bad stuff because that's what we think about. And who am I going to share this with? I can go a couple of routes. If I know somebody who's really not going to hold me accountable, I can go to them and they'll go, oh, you're not that bad a guy, and everybody does it, and you know, it's all cool. I'm not going to hold you accountable, and they will co-sign your bullshit. And some of us, that's who we look for because we really don't want to change. And so you go look for somebody who's not going to say, you need to change. Just somebody's going to pat you on the back. It's all right. You're a good person. You're not all bad. And you don't need that. You need somebody who's going to hold you accountable. It's going to say, yeah, you have done some horrible things. Doesn't make you a horrible person, but you've done horrible things. That's not who you are. But those things need to change for your life to change for the better. And you need that person. And it's a scary thing to go to that guy because it's much better to have somebody who's going to co-sign your bullcrap, just let you rock along without changing. Change is scary. Change is extremely scary. And then when we get to that point, and I love, we didn't read the thing that we used to read, but you know, you're welcome here whether you're clean, sober, drunk, or high. I love that you walk into this room and you're accepted. You're fine. We understand that where you're at and that you're here because you want to improve, and hopefully people in TV land out there, that's why you're here and watching, is because you're wanting to improve. And once you go to this person and you tell them, hey, I've done terrible things, and they say, okay, let's change from here forward, you're going to be fine. And you can be forgiven. You have to accept that forgiveness. It's okay to be okay. And a lot of us think that, well, but if I got to keep beating myself, because if I keep beating myself, I can pay for the penalties that I've done. That's not how you pay for the penalties for the things you've done. The way that you make amends is by changing and making yourself a better future. So you can be forgiven. You don't have to carry your garbage. That's what we're here for. We're here to come alongside as long as you want to carry it for a little while, but you're here to be taught how to put your junk away, put it down, leave it behind you, move on, and have a good life. So you have to not avoid your forgiveness, not refuse your forgiveness, but just accept it. Because I love you, God loves you, most everybody in the room loves you. We want what's best for you.
That's right.
And you can be free. So the questions that it had in overcoming denial is, what am I avoiding in step 4 by delaying step 5? Well, answers are not all made to be public, but, responsibility. As long as I put the stuff on the sheet but never share it to anybody, I'm not held responsible. But as soon as I get brave enough to give you privately, one person, a very special, careful person, my list, and I can give them that list, then I get to be free because they can forgive me, but I'm also responsible to change. But a lot of us don't want to change, so we just carry our list around with us, because I'd rather have a list and be a bad person than I would to give away the list and be a good person. But that's what you're doing when you give away in step 5, is you're giving away your garbage. And you're getting permission to set it down and move on. And the second question is, what is the exact nature of my wrongs as listed in step 4? I am not going to publicly share all of my stuff, because if I publicly share it, you'll feel like you can publicly share it and the whole world would know all my stuff, and I don't want everybody in the world to know all my stuff. That's why we're supposed to pick one person that we trust, and be very careful about that person that you pick, because the next question is, what interferes with my being honest about myself? Well, I kind of answered for myself, but with this person, there's pride and fear. I don't want to admit the worst thing that I ever done to anybody. You know, some of us think this thing that I have to carry to my grave because it's that bad. Trust me, it's not that bad. Hundreds of people have done the worst thing you've ever done, and you're not alone. That's just a trick and a lie that the devil gives you, that you're the worst person that ever lived, and there's no way you can ever be forgiven or make restitution. Doesn't matter what the worst thing you ever did was. Somebody else has done it. Somebody's been there. It needs to come out in the light with one person, because you don't want it shared with everybody. Anyway, there's pride. I don't want to be thought of less by giving that information out. And then there's fear that when you tell that person, if you choose, that they're not going to accept you. I've had some people tell me some things that in the back of my head I want to run screaming because I didn't want to know that. And I have to settle a little bit and tell myself, my job is to love these people, my job is to forgive these people, and in the back of my head it seems like my conscience is on fire, but after I love some really bad people a couple times, it gets really easy to love what would have been considered the worst people in the world 10 years ago before I started coming down here. I've learned how to love and forgive, and golly, I learned how to love and forgive myself for the worst thing I've ever done. And that's why you have to share that with somebody else. And the other fear I have is in picking somebody that I'm going to share this with, is I have to know I can trust that person. I have to know that the person that I choose to be my sponsor or my confidant, that I can tell them anything, and it's not going to be publicized on Facebook tomorrow afternoon. So, I'm going to give you 2 things. You have to share, but you have to be careful who you share with. But when you do, it lifts such a big burden off of your back, and it's a big growth step. This is where the really hard growing begins. And you have to overcome denial. We do got stuff to deal with. Doesn't matter how many times you tell yourself that I'm okay. Most people that are really in denial are not in this room. We still have some of it going on here, but those folks that are really denying are out running around tonight and having a good time and not knowing that their world's crashing. But we're here to work, so plan on finding that person that you can trust. Get your list out, and maybe just give them the smallest thing first. Test them. And then as you trust them more, you can grow down the list. You don't have to go through it all on the first day. but find somebody you can trust, work with them, and grow, and beat your addiction, and don't just get sober, but get recovery. And that's what I got for you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome.
All right, that was good. Let's give Paul another hand there. So we're gonna have Lisa come to the reflection, so please welcome Lisa.
All right. Well, okay, well, it's good to be back down here. It felt, for me, last week, being down here, it felt like, well, it just felt like home, so. And, for those of you who weren't here last week, you know, we covered a topic that was, you know, hitting all my stuff. It felt like SNL all over again, let me just tell you, to me, and this week is no different. So, tells me I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So, I'll get right into it. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And so, as Doug likes to say, I've had some golden opportunities. Of course, golden would not be the color I'd put on them, but I've had some opportunities recently to be dealing with a lot of this stuff, dealing with denial especially. So this has been right up my alley. And talking about the questions in the workbook, it says, what am I avoiding in step 4 by delaying step 5? And you know, I've been at this a long time, worked these steps many, many times. And you get to thinking, well, I won't avoid anything. I'll face it. Whatever it is, God, I'll do it, sign me up. Don't do that, by the way. So, you should be humble, not prideful. And so, I found that my biggest hurdle in answering that question was actually question 2, which is, what is the exact nature of my wrongs as listed in step 4? So, when you are stuck in a perfectionistic prison, you maybe sometimes don't do step 4 right. Throw that out there. Maybe step 4, you list a lot of flaws and things that you perceive about yourself, but you don't really get real about the other part of step 4, which is the good things about yourself, or the fact that you're not who you are in step 4. In step 4, you're not who you were once you made that promise in step 3 and that decision to turn your will and your life over. You're a new creature. So the other part of step 4 is also accepting that forgiveness.
Yes.
It's identifying the new you. So it's coming into accepting new truths about yourself, not just looking at all the wrongs. And so, for me, and how this applies to me and what's in my life, is that in a lot of my traumas and a lot of the things in my life and a lot of the people in my life, when I let them see the flaws or when I made mistakes, they bailed. You know, they either bailed or I got hurt, or, you know, things happen. So I learned to not make mistakes around people. You know, I learned to put up barriers and not let people see the me inside. And I'll put a really good show on the outside. Because I was afraid of losing everybody who ever came to my life. and you think that you are real and you are showing everything, and you believe that, and the denial comes in the fact that you really aren't, because you're not letting go of the fear, you're not letting go of the fear of uncertainty. What if I make a mistake? What if I'm human? What if these flaws from 4 creep on into 5 and still, what if I don't get it? What if it's not a one and done? What if it takes me 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds? Will they still be there? The fear of telling people I need you. I'm always trying to be the one everybody needs. Because it gives up your power. It gives up your certainty of I'm gonna be okay, because I don't ever really let you in. I don't let you know that you have power over me. You don't know I need you, then, well, several things happen. Number 1, you don't know I care. So you can't hurt me. At least that's what my brain tells me. But I gotta realize that maybe that thing in step 4 that I've been avoiding is how I've been treating myself. The prison that I put myself in. Maybe the abuser I need to face is myself. And how do I make peace with that? Because there are things that I have said and done to myself that are worse than anyone else has done. So how do I figure out what the exact natures of that is? What if I don't know what that is? What if I can't fix it? See, that perfectionist prison always says, what if? What if? But the amazing things about these steps is, and the thing that I'm coming to learn is that when you give up that barrier and you let people know, I need you and you're important in my life, please don't go, because it's gonna hurt. Sometimes it's terrifying to tell someone that. But when you do that, it gives them an opportunity to step up and show you the love that God has given them. It gives them the opportunity to be the healing force that God's been trying to give you all along, but you shut it all out because you were too afraid to let it in. So maybe when you work your step 5, maybe it's as simple as going to someone and saying, I need you, because I am flawed, because I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm probably going to make them more than once. But I need you to stay with me, even when I mess up. And I'm going to endeavor to do this thing that I've never done before, and I'm going to trust that you're not leaving. And in that moment, you let God in, and that's where the healing begins. You just gotta, like question 3 says, what interferes with my being honest with myself? Me. So get outside of me. and let God do it. So that's what I have.
All right, that was good. Let's give Lisa another hand there. So, when I was listening to the step in the reflection, I had a few thoughts I was going to share. So, hope that's all right. I'm going to do it anyway if that's not all right.
Well, then it's gonna be all right.
It's gonna have to be, you know. I don't think we're live. We don't edit around here, so. I'm thinking I'm trying to make this not R-rated. You know, I'm not behaving very well today.
Don't listen
So, huh?
She said, don't listen, Linda.
Yeah. Well, Paul already beat me to it tonight. Paul's in trouble. You know, like Lisa was saying, that we are the hardest on ourselves. No one treats us worse than we treat ourselves, you know. And, you know, side note on that, if you want to know why somebody's treating you so bad, look in the mirror. Because, and I'm not trying to be harsh, that you're letting them do it, and part of the reason why they're getting away with that is because they watch how you treat you.
Good point.
And, you know, we like to think that nobody can see our stuff, but can we see everybody else's stuff? Like, you can see my stuff, right? I may think that I have it all packed away, you know, and it's nice and neat, and it's, right? But you can see my stuff, right? And don't freak out, but I can see your stuff, right? But, and if we would be really, really honest with each other, it'd probably scare us how much we see of each other, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That could really be a gift if we would allow that process to happen, right? You know, because we would realize that we're not so alone with the things we struggle with, and we're not so alone in this world with all the things we fight. You know, but we like to think that we have this all packed and put away real nice and neat, you know. And the truth is I can see Tommy's stuff and Tommy can see my stuff, right, Tommy? I'm picking on Tommy because he's putting his jacket on like he's leaving, so, you know, I got to harass him today. So, you know, the truth is, you know, you see everybody else sees you. We just ignore that and go on, you know. And, you know, something else Lisa said about power, you know, we don't want people to think they have power over us, but the truth is, people know they have power over us. And the truth is, they use it all the time. If you think about it, if we're just going to be really real, because that's how we are down here, we're really real. You know, we push and pull and manipulate and maneuver and, you know, and coerce, and we tell ourselves that it's for the person's own good or what have you. And, you know, but we know, you know, we know that we have power over the people. You know, we know how to use that to our benefit. You know, I'm a big guy, you know. You know, I know that, you know, I practice certain things. Like when I talk to folks, I usually sit down so that I'm not so big, because I don't want to be lording over people, you know, especially if they're sitting down. I try to talk in a calm voice. I try talking in a calm voice. You know, I try to watch my volume, my tone. You know, these are things that I just practice that no one probably even thinks about. Because if I don't watch those things, you know, I've been in a crowd of people before, and I wasn't even the loudest person, and the police attacked me because I was the biggest guy, so they wanted to get me taken care of first, you know. And so the point is, just like we can think about how not to use our size and those things to get what we want. On the flip side, when I was not such a nice guy, I used to do those things, you know. And not that I'm proud of it, but I guess I just wanted to say, you know, if, and I'm not saying that I'm there, because I'm not. I'm practicing it just like everybody else. You know, if we could, something that Jordan Peterson says, he says, I'm not going to quote this right, Doug, if I get it wrong, you can correct me. He says, something about lying and telling the truth. He's trying to encourage you to tell the truth. And what he's really trying to say is be honest. Be honest with yourself and others, you know. And like, you ever watch that movie, Liar, Liar? That old movie with, what's that guy's name? Jim Carrey, Liar, Liar, where he lied all the time, and then God made it to where he couldn't tell a lie. You know? You ever thought, if everybody could be that honest? It's kind of terrifying, but there's some benefits that would come from that too, you know? So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So without further ado, please welcome Doug.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul, for the step, and Kate, thank you for reading the 12 steps. It's been a long time since we've had you down here reading for us, so thank you very much. She's a graduate. Did you know that? Yeah. As a former friend many years ago said that he was talking about his brother, said his brother quintiated. That meant he graduated. So you quintiated. How's that, college girl? Going off to college? Well, as far as I know, right? Yeah. So anyway, we're talking about step 5 here, and Paul was very thorough in going over the information and talking about the step. Did a good job, Paul. And Lisa, you brought out some stuff there that was very, very good, and some hard stuff. She's very open, and you know, that's not easy to do, and so appreciate that. Thank you. And so now it's your time. Do you have any comments or questions about any of the information that either Zach or Paul or Kate, or I thought Kate in there, or Lisa has said? Anybody got any questions or comments? Okay, very good. One of the things that Lisa was talking about on doing step 5, as the question talked about reverting back to step 4, about processing those things. Actually, it talked about avoiding. I'll just read that question. It says, what am I avoiding in step 4 by delaying step 5? And you know, when she made a really good point about one of the oftentimes people will talk about all their bad, but they never recognize any of their good points, correct? Because the bad seems to jump out at us. But I had a new thought while you were talking there, Lisa, and maybe you touched it. The reason why I thought about it was oftentimes, and it kind of goes to what we talked about self-deception last week, which was a very good topic, and this one ties right in with it about self-denial, that sometimes we'll go ahead and cover the bad stuff that's easy and let go of everything else. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You don't have to raise your hand. You know, and so as long as I tell some of the better bad stuff, how do you like that terminology?
Yeah. Better bad?
Better bad stuff, that, you know, I can keep the rest of it hidden. And that would be almost a little humorous if you really didn't know the rest of the story and see you don't even know all of your stuff yet. Shall I say that again? You don't even know all of your stuff, okay? That's the reason why Lisa was talking about going through the steps multiple times, and I talk about it often. I get stuff every time I go through the steps because you go to a different level, which is a good thing, right? Which is a good thing, right? It's a good thing because you become more free. You're freer. And if you're freer, then you're able to have more joy. And if you have more joy, then you can have a greater life happiness. And everybody says they want to be happy, right? And that's what Saturday Night Live's all about, is to help you to deal with the messiness of life. And life is messy. But the rest of that is, life has been very messy in the past. And we all got baggage. Some of it we're aware of, and there's a lot of it that's hiding from us. There's so much that I have learned about the brain, that the brain will hide stuff. Last week I even talked about, if you remember, last week I talked about the brain will deliberately hide information from you so that you don't take action on it. Can you believe that? But then, of course, maybe it's learned from the way that we choose to do things. We hide stuff from ourselves. You know, and that's exactly what denial is, right? We decide to deny something that it's not real, even though I know it's real. How can we do that? How can you do that? How have you done it in the past? Just a question, okay? What do you think about those questions? You don't like those questions. You can't handle the truth, right? Oh, well, truth is sometimes very difficult, and I don't want to go too far. You know, I tell people all the time when I visit with them about how to deal with issues and situations. I said we're kind of like surgeons. We have to make fine cuts, little cuts. Why? Because you don't, stick the scalpel in and then rip somebody open, right? You take fine cuts, a little bit at a time, to be able to figure out how deep and how far that you go. Does that make sense? And so I don't want to go too deep here, right? I just want to go down where we need to this time, okay? So, anyway, any questions before I get into this? Yes, Paul?
I was just thinking, you never dwell on the good stuff, you dwell on the bad stuff, and it eats at you. But the good stuff, you can do 1,000 good things and never think about it, but that one bad thing will trap your mind and hold you stuck forever because you dwell on it.
And that's true. And I have an interesting comment on one of my 9 ways here about the importance of the bad stuff. Can you believe that I said something about importance of the bad stuff? Okay, because the bad stuff can be really position you for great growth if you look at it properly. If you think about it properly, instead of beating yourself up, forgiving yourself and learning from it. What do you think about that? We'll talk more about that here in a moment, okay? But any other questions? Did we talk about what you wanted to talk about there?
Yeah, that's just a comment.
But, you know, we're all making some adjustments here because, you know, it's not the way that it was a year and a half ago, and it's not like it was a year, the last year or so. So we're all trying to get mentally and emotionally synchronized here to try to be able to have, because we're doing a dual meeting here. We're doing the video, and we want to give the people out there in video land the information we always have, but it's always been kind of a second thought, and now we bumped that up to try to give it a greater priority. So anyway, we're glad that you out in Facebook and YouTube are here with us. And we're at the point where we call this time here Doug time. And so the topic that I have selected here that ties in with what Paul has selected on overcoming denial. But I need to go back a little bit on overcoming denial, because the information, the scripture references that we had that tied out of our Life Recovery Bible talked about Judah and Tamar, and how Tamar was a daughter-in-law to 2 of his sons, and they both had died. And Jewish law was that she was entitled to have to be married to another son, so that she could have children, and that would basically that's kind of her. She would raise them, and then they are her. Take care of her in her retirement, so to speak. Okay, and that's the not only custom, but that was the law of the Jews. And so, and the problem is, Judah didn't fulfill his agreement. He wasn't following the law. He said he would, but he didn't. Okay, and so to make a long story short, she actually dressed up like a prostitute, and he had sex with her and got her pregnant. This is in your Bible. And so when he found out she was pregnant, he was going to have her executed. Yeah, what do you think about those apples? And so she kept his seal or a signet, his walking staff, which identified who he had given it to her, because he didn't have any money or whatever, and so he did that, saying, "I'll come back and pay and get my stuff later." He didn't come back, pay. He didn't come back and get his stuff. I'd say he maybe wanted to hide that, and so he avoided. You know how we do things, we avoid stuff, and so maybe he was, who knows? I'm just going to say maybe it was a weak moment, a weak time, and he did what he did, and then he just wanted to disappear, right? Speculation.
She sent payment, she disappeared.
Yeah, and then the rest of it was trying to make her disappear. And that's ways sometimes we work. And of course she had these items, and when they were getting ready to execute her, it says, "The man that got me pregnant, these are his items. He will recognize them." And for some reason, they took him to Judah, and Judah said, she's more righteous than I am. Now, what the reason why they put this story in here is because he was denying reality. He was denying what went on. Okay, he denied in the beginning where he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and then he denied what he did do. Okay, does that make sense? All right? Does that sound like anybody you know, not your life, but somebody you know? Right? Right? Surely not, but maybe. And so, anyway, he recognized that actually, the scripture, I'm going to just read it to you. She is more righteous than I am. That is out of Genesis 38, 26, and 27. And anyway, he recognized that, he was caught. You know how it is, we like to confess after we get caught?
That makes it all better.
Yeah, well,
I think people deny things that are on
yeah,
camera.
yeah, they figure that denial is working for them, but the fact of it is, the truth of it is, and the reason why we're talking about denial and overcoming denial is because it's not what it does to others, and it does do stuff to others, right? Can we all agree on that? But what it does to ourselves. It's poison to us mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It will rot our own soul. Would you agree with that? Okay, so that was just a little bit of my points I wanted to throw out there, and I happened to think about that, I think because of your comments, so thank you. And so, how to be 100% honest with yourself. A requirement to self-improvement. And we all want, I believe, at least everybody in this room, I'm sure, wants to have self-improvement, correct? Yes. And so, of course, self-improvement is a real easy job. Were you squinting at me or you on that? And so,
I'll never tell.
and so, anyway, and so that's the reason why I want to thank you that are watching and that you that are here, is because evidently you're looking for something. And we want to help. I want to help. We all want to help each other. We want to help you out there to be able to improve yourself, to come to the place that, yes, maybe you get sober, and we want you to get sober, but so, as Paul said earlier, I believe he said that it's not just about getting sober. It's about having recovery, right? Right? And recovery means not just being a dry drunk, but start to heal those hurts and those pains and those traumas that are inside of us that we've been running from, and that we possibly used some sort of chemical substance or behavior to cover that up or numb that up or to avoid that. Am I speaking the right message here? Okay, all right. And so sometimes, and we all, and as I was speaking about in step 4, sometimes we tell some stuff, and I don't want to downgrade that you did at least tell some of the bad stuff, okay? That's not all bad. That's still pretty good. But it's not, you're not done yet, right? It isn't just one and done, okay? You know, I'll tell the truth about this one thing, and maybe God won't see the rest of it. But even if God doesn't see the rest of it, which He does, we know it. And it's eating us up from the inside. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Okay? All right. So, being honest with yourself can be painful. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, amen?
Yes.
That's right.
Amen.
But can be highly rewarding. Can't it? Isn't it? Could it be a golden opportunity, Lisa?
Sure, we'll go golden.
And see, I try to refer to what most people talk about problems as opportunities, and if they're really good opportunities, they're golden opportunities.
Because golden is the color of ducks delight.
And so when we are honest, and it's even painful, then that's really where we have a higher and greater reward. And when we're honest, and when honesty meets our willingness to change, there is no telling the way that we can grow and improve. Shall I read that last part again? I think it'll be good. And that is, when honesty meets your willingness to change, there is no telling the way you can grow and improve. Okay? It requires willingness, okay, and honesty. Honesty is a huge part of our self-improvement and overcoming delusional thinking. Would you agree with that, Tommy? No, it's ouch, oh me, right?
Yeah.
And that's some of that pain we were talking about a while ago, but it's, there's two types of hurt. There's the healthy hurt that actually is kind of like going to the dentist because we got a bad toothache, he hurts us to try to fix it. That's healthy hurt. Or we continue to hurt ourselves by doing stuff that just continually causes us to be in pain. If I hurt myself enough, that'll maybe even, if I hurt myself in one area, maybe that'll cover the hurt that I have in someplace else.
Right.
Shifting that hurt. All right, so if we aren't honest, then we can't expect to learn and grow. Right? Okay. We have to be willing to recognize reality for what it is before we can change it. We talk a lot about reality around here, right? Because if you don't accept reality, then you're living in fantasy, which is actually a dimension of denial. Would you agree with that? So if we're living in fantasy or denial or pretend state or non-real state, because it's easier to pretend that the problems are not there or the bills don't come in, we'll put them in the drawer, and if I don't see them, then they don't count. If they don't catch me, it don't matter. It's kind of like what I said last week about the guy that would steal stuff, and it actually ended up costing him more money in relationship to the stuff that he stole. It's funny how that works out. So, do I? See?
You said something a minute ago, sometimes we stay in a hurtful or painful situation or environment or, fill in the blank there because we perceive or believe that the alternative will hurt worse. And,
Yes.
And so, we just, we believe that we believe that we can't have a life without that pain or that hurt. And that to me is that's what's really, really sad is that there are people that believe that you can't have a life. What we're talking about tonight to me partially is being real and honest with ourselves, and as scary as that is, that really is the only path out of pain, where you can have freedom.
Yes.
It can be painful to be honest about who we are at the moment or where we are, if that's not where we want to be. But you got to know where you start from. You got to know, you gotta know where to, where you're at to see where you're going,
That's true.
and it's, the fantasy, the fantasy is painful, because the fantasy, you don't get to live in the fantasy without pain, because the truth is, that the fantasy that the light bill, you don't gotta pay it, pretty soon the light goes off, and the heater don't work, and the water goes off, then there's no, can't take a bath, and then, so that, the fantasy is not without pain.
That's true. And, the instrument on the dash of your car says check engine, and we say, well, it must just be having a problem. And then we have a bigger problem, right? It can happen that way. Yes, Paul?
If you don't know how to be healthy, scary is healthy, or healthy is scary. I had a nephew that had bad tonsils from the time he was a little bitty, and when he got them taken out, he thought something was wrong because he didn't hurt.
Yes?
He was so comfortable with that, it was his normal, and it scared him when the hurt quit.
Well, I've had some of those experiences where it felt strange to not have the pain.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so this is what we're talking about. Denial can lie to us, and we think that that's our world. We can fall into a state of being so overwhelmed that we convince ourselves there's no hope, right? Nobody in here has ever had this, but there's no hope. So we become nihilistic and hopeless, and we just go ahead and don't take any healthy steps to help ourselves because we believe it's futile, so we just give up and suffer till we die. Sounds terrible, right? But it happens. It happens because we believe that, and we keep reinforcing it with those self-deceiving situations, and there's people, and I don't think I'm going to get all this covered, but that's all right. But and it's really hard to deal with those people, okay, all right? I'm trying to be delicate here, okay? It's hard to deal with those. It's hard to, I don't even want to call them those people, because I feel that that's inappropriate or unkind, but we talked about calling people on their, how about this, their BS, okay? I'm staying safe.
You're being so good tonight.
Hey.
Linda will be so proud of you.
Yes. But it's hard, it's really hard to call people on their BS when they're in that hopeless state. And I think it's appropriate to a large degree because they are so underwater, it's hard to be overly truthful with them because it would sink them. And do what?
They're fragile.
They're fragile, and that's where you have to take ultra-fine cuts. Does that make sense? Ultra-fine incisions, and it's challenging because sometimes we have the idea, let's just go deep and get it over with. Yes.
So, what you're saying there to me, and is that if you don't have the relationship for that, then absolutely you have no right at all or reason to be calling anybody on their bullshit. I'm not going to behave. So, however, if you do have the relationship, then sometimes it is appropriate for you to do that because you have the relationship. You don't want to hurt anybody. But we do have those people in the world who think it is their duty or right, or they feel like they're not being a good Christian or whatever if they don't, everything's a nail and they're the hammer.
Right?
And it's not really about the person or their pain, it's about them crossing, putting the check mark on their duty or whatever they feel like they're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
So, I think absolutely, if you don't have the relationship with that person, you have no business, mistreating them.
And
like
I
that.
agree with you. I agree with you 100%, maybe 100 and maybe 1,000%, okay? And even if you have a relationship, you still have to be, in my opinion, delicate.
I totally agree.
And oftentimes when I do that, and I'm gonna look at the ceiling, oftentimes when I do that I tell them it's coming, and I apologize, but this is the way, here we go. And I ask for permission, okay?
But that's good.
Can I look down now?
Yes, you can look down.
Hey, honestly,
We all know you wanted to look at me, it's okay.
Hey, honestly, I think that you need to tell people how to do that, because that's really good, that's a really good way to do that.
Well, and at that point, when somebody's in that pit of hopelessness, the only delusion you should be challenging is the hopelessness. If you are helping
I agree with
anyone,
that.
you should be sparking hope by using your story and how you overcame and explaining to them that there is hope, you can do it, and tell them when they get to that point where they go, oh, there's a way, then you tell them how and help them get to the point where they can hear it. But if they can't hear it because their ears are plugged with hopelessness, then you need to spark the hope and burn out the hopelessness.
And I agree, and I have found out, and it's common information, but it just took me a long time to figure it out, is that people hear stories faster than facts. We all want facts, but we can't hear the facts, but we can hear the stories. Why? Because stories are relatable. But we want the facts, but we really need the story. And people get frustrated with me sometimes because I tell so many stories. But you remember stories a lot longer than you remember the facts. But we want the facts. So we have to do both of them. Or they won't pay attention. Does that make sense?
I've learned to add a Q&A at the end of the story and then they get all the facts.
So, anyway, I want to be done at 8:30, and so, but this is good. This is good, and it's been so good that it's got Renee pacing. So, I'm going to run through these 8 things really quick. I've got 3 pages of notes, but I'm just going to touch on them, and we covered some of it already because it's just the way that it is. And Paul's laughing at me because he don't believe me. And but the 9 keys are this, okay? And that is, and this is the big one, remember, acknowledge both the good and bad. I think we've talked about that quite a bit tonight, right? We got to acknowledge both of them, and it's one of the common ways we delude ourselves is by ignoring the bad, okay? We just flat out ignore it. And that aspect of life, we need to be aware of that. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes these areas of bad spots are actually blind spots, and we turn a blind eye to it. Sometimes we can't see it, sometimes we do it intentionally. The simple truth is that ignoring the problem does not fix the problem. Would anybody agree with that? Okay?
It grows.
It grows, it gets bigger, and in fact, the information says it can get worse. And it gets worse because nothing is stagnant, right? Nothing's stagnant. It's either getting better or getting worse. Okay? And so what we need to be honest about the problems so that we can grow out of that problem, and then then we'll have more control over ourselves, and we have more control over ourselves, and we actually have more freedom. How's that sound? okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and talks about radical acceptance. That's important. We need to cultivate a new mindset, that radical acceptance. What does that mean? We're talking about denial. We have to accept reality the way that it is. What does it say right here? It is what it is, right? And it's in our best interest to have radical acceptance. Not that we like it, but that it's real. And as that quote that I read earlier, and when you accept that it is what it is, then you're able to affect it. What they said, change it, or at least you're able to affect it, okay? And so that's so important. Let's go on. Number 2, take time to reflect. 5 to 10 minutes every night, reflect on your day. 3 questions, here they are. How did things go today? Ask yourself that. How did things go today? Okay? Number 2, what did I do right? What did I do right? That's so important. We're on the spot about what we did wrong, oftentimes, but we need to set our mind at night before we go to sleep, because the last 15 minutes before we shut our mind down and go to sleep are golden times, because that's what we take with us into our sleep time, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, whatever it is that you sleep, okay? I thought I'd throw 12 in there because that's ridiculous, but sometimes people need that. And so, whatever you need, that's what you ought to get. But what did I do right? Number 3 is, what could I have done better? Okay, and we're not talking about a problem, just what can I improve on? See, that's pushing ourselves in the direction that we want to go, need to go, should go, right? Instead of beating ourselves up and tearing ourselves down, we're trying to guide ourselves into that higher position that we want to go in, making ourselves better, not worse, okay? Practice what you want. Don't practice what you don't want. How many times have you heard that? A few. So be honest with yourself. Don't be judgmental or critical. Because when you do that, you hurt your own self-esteem. Okay? Does that make sense? And so what we need to do is we need to go through the day, absorb the information, and evaluate it at night so that we can improve our life for tomorrow. How's that sound? You already knew all that stuff, right?
So I shouldn't be judgmental of other people, and I shouldn't be judgmental of myself.
Well, I'm not going to shit on you.
Thou shalt not shit on yourself, that's right.
But you need to figure out what's in your best interest. But if you were to ask me what's in your best interest, I would say keep your judgment off of yourself and off of others.
Right, but it's really easy to say, I ought to not judge you, but it's really hard to not judge yourself.
And it is hard, but the rest of the story is, at least I believe it because I've lived it. Even though I didn't think I was judging others, because I judged myself, I actually, in a passive way, judged everybody else. And I was secretly judging you. I did that.
Well, it's not a secret anymore.
Well, I've said this before. I recognize that, but to be able to not to judge you, I really had to set myself free by not judging myself.
Well, the truth is that when you are judging yourself so harshly, you put false judgments on other people because you assume false things so that you can justify your judgment of yourself. So you start believing things and you start judging people based off of what you think they will do if they know this thing about you.
Yeah.
And that is a false judgment. And you don't realize that because then that leads to distrust and all these other things that are made out of judgment. And so, by judging yourself, you're setting yourself up for false judgment.
And the rest of the story is that a lot of people, a lot of us know this, that in whatever we're judging somebody else about is really an indicator that that's what's going on in your life.
Mhm.
Right? John 7, judge not lest you be judged. Okay?
Judge yourself lest you be judged.
Yeah.
Press down, shake together, running over, back to measure. If you need approval, study to show yourself approved.
You bet. Thank you, Jennifer. So let's go on to number 3. Wow. Admit it when you make a mistake. One of the most painful things is to be honest with yourself and with others. Step 5 is admitting to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrong. And that is painful, particularly like Paul was saying in the beginning. It's hard in the beginning, but it does get easier. It does get, because it lightens you up. It frees you. It changes you. You change you by admitting. It's amazing, okay? I'm going to go on to number 4. Where's number 4? All right, number 4. What is number 4?
One more thing regarding the self, the Lord tells us to deny yourself, take up your own cross, and follow the practice.
That's right. Number 4, pay attention to your feelings. And this is a big area. I'm not going to be able to get it all covered, but this is so important to be aware of your feelings. Pay attention to your feelings, because we all experience feelings. They play a big role in how we see ourselves and others. Wouldn't you agree with that? And to be truly honest with yourself, you have to accept your emotional part of yourself. For years, I denied the emotional part of myself, okay? But I realized when I felt like the Holy Spirit told me that I was cutting off 1/3 of myself by denying my emotions. And so we need to have what they call emotional intelligence, okay? And that is that you have the understanding of your emotions, okay? You understand your emotions. How do you understand your emotions? You go to school on them. You ask yourself, well, what am I feeling? What am I really feeling? What's the feeling underneath that feeling? What causes that feeling? What caused that feeling? What really caused that feeling? That may sound like I'm going too far, but that's pretty much what you have to do. You have to keep boring down on these things. Ask yourself questions. It's a very interesting thing about the mind. When you ask it a question, it goes to work to answer it. Right? So ask yourself questions. Okay? Just think about it. See how that works out. Emotions are a powerful sign and can help guide your thoughts and behaviors, especially when you understand where they're coming from. Boy, that's a powerful statement. Where they're coming from. See, because, we were talking about denial and having pain and emotional feelings and having thoughts, because we don't even realize that we've always had some of this stuff. And if we will understand where they come from, and address them, because have you ever heard the word triggers? Okay, people have emotional triggers. Okay, and they don't know why they act the way they act. Okay, I've heard myself say many years ago, I don't know why I act this way. I don't know why I feel this way. Yes, there's a reason why. Right? There's a reason why. Because there's always a reason. Okay? And so we have to figure out what the source of our feelings are, particularly if they're negative feelings. Okay? So that we can deal with them, so that we can address them, so that we can be set free from them, and so that we can then change those feelings. And there's a whole lot of stuff we can talk about that. And so we need to address them. So We need to acquire this knowledge, but if you didn't even know that you could address your own self about your feelings, then you'll never do it, right? So hopefully that's something for all of you here and all of you out there. All right, number 5, and we're right at it. Find someone you trust to open yourself up to. And that's so important. And it's so important to find somebody you trust that is safe, that you're able to trust, that can recognize you and hear what you're saying. And particularly, they might be a stranger to you, which is not always bad, but you have to be able to trust them, because if they are a close friend or a family member or sometimes they're not able to even, they have been living the life with you possibly, so they are caught up in the same delusion. Does that make sense? So sometimes you need somebody that's outside of your world that's not a part of your delusion. Does that make sense? All right, number 6. Avoid overthinking and blaming. So important. Sometimes we get so caught up in analyzing and that we just spend so much time on tearing ourselves apart. And I really like this. Let's see if I can find it. Maybe it's the last part here. Let's look at it. Being honest with yourself isn't about trying to find the meaning behind everything that's happened to you or blaming yourself for everything. Sometimes bad things happen to good people for no good reason.
It's true.
Okay.
Sometimes all hell breaks loose when you're trying to get your life right. How often does that happen?
It does. It happens. It happens. But what we have to do is I like this next statement. It's easier to accept the facts. It's easier to accept the facts and let go. It is what it is, right here, right? It is what it is. Knowing why it is not as important as recognizing that it is. Is that too murky? Rather than finding the great grand meaning behind certain events in your life, we just accept it. This is a follow-up statement here. I think is big, real big, and that is the real meaning of your past comes with your decision to do what you do after it. The real meaning of your past comes from what you decide to do after it. Your decision is the important factor, not what happens to you. Epictetus said this very same thing, philosopher. It's not what the circumstances are or what happens to you, but it's your response to it. Okay? And that's so good. The next statement is if you're going to think about something, think about that. In other words, the decision that I made, hey, this blew up in my face, but I made an appropriate decision. Think about that, what I did, the healthy choice that I made. We don't usually do that, though. We usually go with the destructive thought, right? So think about the good stuff. Number 7, know when to trust your gut. I'm going to condense here. The better we know ourselves, the more that we can trust our gut and our intuition. And I had a analogy written down here, or kind of a point that most people, I was thinking about military, police, SWAT, SEAL team, all those different folks that have specialized training to be able to, like firefighters, to be able to run into a fire and it seems like they they have no fear, but they've had training to help them to deal with the situations and to stay clear in thought, to be able to perform, and they don't even have to, because they've trained so hard, so much, it's now become their instinct, okay, to run to the gunfire instead of away from it. Our instinct, for the most part, is to run away, all right? But the fact of it is, I'm thinking about, oftentimes I watch these different shows where they're on firing ranges and things can be there for an instant and they can make a sudden thought, whether it's an enemy or it's a friend. And they're, according to brain science, they're able to tap into, because our brain knows a little bit before things show up, according to research, and our heart knows even before that what's going to show up, according to random computers, random generator computers, random pictures that are randomly selected by the computer, that they're able to check with instrumentation their heart and their brain, and to see that it has a reaction before you even see it. How that happens, you have to figure that out or ask a scientist. But the fact of it is, I'm thinking that these individuals, they are able to tune into their training, possibly to some of that stuff that's down inside of it, possibly. But the fact of it is, it's in the area of intuition or instinct. And they bet their life on it. And they bet other people's life on it. Right? So we have to learn how to trust our gut. Now we know of times that we can't trust our gut because we've trained it the wrong direction. So what am I saying? We have to train it in the right direction, or in the healthy direction. Number 8, accept what you don't know. We have to accept that we don't know everything, and that we have to accept that we don't know it. And we can't be so stubborn and hard-headed to think that we do, because then that sets us up for a problem. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
All right. Well, and number 9, honesty takes practice. You have to practice what you want. We've practiced other stuff. Now we have to practice what we want. So practice, 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 practice. Too much information? I thought it was good information. Even what I said, and there was other stuff that was even better than what I talked about. So anyway, any questions or comments? I'm glad you're here. You stuck it out, didn't you? I think I about wore Mike out there, didn't I, Mike? And so, anyway, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace. Did you want me to close this, Zach, or did you want to? Thanks for being here. Thank you out there in video land for being here. Yes, life is messy, but there is hope. We have a way out. We have hope. No matter how bad it is. We've had people come in here that said, all I want to do is be able to try to live another day. And they have. Okay? So, anyway, until next time, until next week, have a safe holiday, and maybe, how about this? Here's an exercise for you. Practice being kind to somebody. It'll do you good. Until next time, hey, you guys practice to be kind too, right?
And be kind to yourself.
Absolutely, be kind to